How's everybody doing tonight? Not good, huh? How's everybody doing tonight? Still not good. How's everybody doing tonight? Much better. Thank you very much for coming for another event of NEPOC. This is actually a different structure. We haven't had a technical event in such a long time. Babak has been in charge of our career committee in NEPOC, and he has suggested to host a professional engineering for everyone, and we have actually gathered a different crowd tonight. So thank you very much for coming. Welcome to NEPOC. And Babak is very modest. He has been working for NEPOC for many years, and he has given me a very short, small little bio to introduce him. Babak Khatiblu has successfully completed his Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from University of Naft Tehran, Naft Abadan in Iran. He has pursued his higher education at the Columbia University in New York City and received 2 masters, 1 Master of Science in Industrial Engineering and his MBA. Babak has passed his PE registration in 2 different fields of engineering, mechanical and industrial, in the state of California. He has extensive years of experience in manufacturing and 5 years in oil and gas in just Southern California. He is presently consulting for IQA Solution. Babak has had a spirit of volunteerism since his early ages in technical field. Babak has volunteered 10 years for Society of Engineers and Architects in Beverly Hills. He has joined NEPOC shortly after he has moved to Orange County in 1990. He has contributed to NEPOC as a treasurer, a board member, and more importantly, he has established a career committee within NEPOC organization. Through this career committee, Babak has helped many Iranian American professionals with their job search and modifying their resumes. Babak has helped many Iranian American professionals to successfully land a job in professional engineering degrees. Without further ado, we welcome Babak to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I hope this thing works properly. Okay. All right, tonight we're talking about becoming PE, professional engineer. The reason I picked it up because working in the career committee, I come across a lot of engineers, many of them straight from Iran, many of them US graduates, and it seems that they need some encouragement to take this route. I want to put things in perspective, why we need it and why it's going to be helpful. First of all, I looked up the history of this thing, and until 1907, there was no professional engineers at all. No state had anything. Wyoming was the first one to start. Then years later, a couple of states, one by one. You can imagine. It took 40 years for all the 50 states to establish professional engineering boards. It's a state thing, so every state had to come up with their regulations and requirements. The idea is to have accountability. In California, you have Department of Consumer Affairs in charge of this aspect. And if there is any issue, if somebody does a bad engineering, they can go find out who they are and make a complaint. make engineers, first of all, they want to make sure whoever signs drawings, plans, they are qualified. And second, they're accountable. You know, you put the number, PE number down there, so if there's any problem, they know where to go, who to complain, who the engineer is. So it's for accountability. And honestly, look at other professionals. You're talking about, like, if you want to hire a contractor, most people prefer to hire a licensed contractor. High-end, well, some of the fields you cannot even practice without licensing. Doctors and lawyers, you have to. Without that, you cannot just practice. Engineers are lucky enough that they can practice without a license, but they should remember that it's better for them to take this route, and which I'm going to explain, and become licensed or registered. The process starts with basically it's a 2 tests and some experience. The first test, fundamental of engineering, used to be called engineering in training. It's basically the first 3 years of engineering. Math, science, physics, thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, chemistry, a little bit computers. The basics, you really need 3 years, at least 3 years of engineering. So, and honestly, they don't require anything. You say, I want to take the test. I say, okay, pay whatever, I don't know, $150, whatever, come take the test. As easy as that. Once you pass that test, you start going to the second stage. Now, there is a little thing is, if you have graduated, let's say, before year 2001, 15 years ago, you can ask for a waiver. I always recommend people take it. I think it's a good review for them. But if they find it hard to remember all the other sciences, they can ask for a waiver. And usually they will say, okay, that's fine. If you got your degree, the last degree 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago, just go take your professional test. Simply put, you have to show 6 years of education and experience. The way you show it, if you get a bachelor's here in an accredited college or university, it counts for 4. The foreign graduates, they only give them credit for 2. So, doesn't matter if you're Sharif's graduate or whatever, they only give you 2 years credit. Now, if you get your master's degree from an accredited university here, that will bring you up to 5 years experience. Master's or even PhD, doesn't matter. You need to have some work experience. So ideally, and I know a couple of people over here, they're finishing their master's degree or just finish it. It's really nice because all they have to do is show 1 year of experience under a professional engineer in the United States. So if you start this process, look for people who you work with that are already PE, because you need them to sign the forms and say, yes, I have worked with Mr. So-and-so, I know what he did, I know he's knowledgeable, so they have to kind of sign it. Usually they want 4 people to sign, typically 4 people. And once you get that 4 signatures and the required amount of experience, you can go take the test, the final test in your field. I list down the fields for you. We have agricultural engineering, chemical, civil, controls, electrical, fire protection, industrial, mechanical, metallurgical, nuclear, petroleum, and traffic engineering. These are the fields that you can get a PE in California. Once you take this, the first test is 8-hour test, and the second test is also an 8-hour, one-day test. Once you pass that, all you have to do is take a take-home exam, which is about the rules and regulations that the state rules. So you kind of study, they give you the material to study, and then you basically look it up, answer the question, a couple of hours at home. And you submit that, and that's it. Once you pass all this, you become a professional engineer. Now, there are some things that we have to be aware of. For civil engineers, which is really the biggest users or the biggest player in this field, they have to take 2 extra tests. One is for seismic engineering. California, you get a lot of earthquakes, so you need to know about seismic. My understanding is it's a 3-hour test. It's not as big, but it's a test. And there is another test for engineering surveying. The tests, the good thing about the tests is they are administered by a national group. It's called National, what is it? I put the name down somewhere here. Yes, NCESS. They, in other words, once you take the PE test with them, or EIT test, or FE test, if you want to go get the PE in Arizona, it's not that difficult because Arizona also uses the same group. So everybody uses these exams by this group. However, some states have little extra requirement if you want to get an additional second PE. But as far as the application, you have to go to the California Board for Professional Engineers. They also include land surveyors. I know we have at least one land surveyor here tonight, and geologists. I don't know if we have any geologists, but all the licensing of all these professionals is handled by this one board. Now, I know we have an architect here tonight. The architecture has their own board, and their process is more extensive. So I'm not going to cover that, but they go through their own board and all that. The same way that the contractors have a separate board. So the Board of Engineers only cover PEs, professional engineers, land surveyors, and geologists. Do we have any civil engineers here tonight? Okay. Now, once you pass the PE test and become a civil engineer, you can even go further. For instance, you can become a structural engineer, SE. Now, that has another requirement. You need to have 5 years experience as a PE, and then take a 2-day test. It's more extensive, and it's harder. It is harder. PE, I don't consider it very hard. SE is harder. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is harder. But then you become, they call it SE, but it's really structural authority. You can design, you're allowed to design high-rises. If there is a court case, you can go as an expert witness. It's the highest level for a structural engineer. Also, geotech has its own test. I don't know the exact requirement, but you have to be a PE first. These are things that you can do afterwards. So that's the extent for them. I hope to encourage everybody with an engineering degree to go into this route and complete it. Now, the first question is, okay, let's say tonight you decided that, okay, I want to start the process. The books typically something like this, not major. It's only one book. It's only one book. Now, my friend Ali, I've been trying to encourage him, and I'm still working on him. It's basically academic. If you did well in college, it should not be a problem. If you barely pass the classes, then you need to. It's going to catch up with you. Yeah, it's academics, honestly. So the book, the way I see it is, anyone who's done engineering degree or other degrees have gone through several books, at least one book for every course they took. So taking one extra test for one extra book should not be that difficult. However, that's kind of the marketing part of it. The reality is, it's like 20 chapters, 22 chapters. Each chapter is a book itself. Chemistry. So if you remember chemistry, okay, you're going to review the chemistry chapter, you're going to do fine. If you don't remember a subject, or if you have not taken it, sometimes once I came across one of my friends, when he was doing, he didn't take he was an electrical engineer, and he didn't do thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, this sort of things. In Iran, they cut a good portion of the program for humanities and Islamic studies, so all these extra classes were taken away, so he had to study it. That one chapter is not going to do it. You got to get a book and study it, and if you want to earn the credits for that chapter. One thing they have done over the years is, I noticed that they try to make it easier. It used to be that the first test was the same for everybody. Now, when you go to online to register for it, you have options. You can get like fundamental FE with a chemical engineering emphasis on it. So it's designed, it will ask you other questions, but it will be heavier on the chemical engineering related classes. Or electricals, they will have more to their liking. So I think that should have made it easier. Even on the PE, the exam used to be, I remember when I took it many years ago, we were given 20 problems, they said pick 8. So you look at the problem, hopefully you know what it is and you solve it. Now again, you have an option that, okay, for every discipline you have sub-disciplines that kind of, if you've been working in a particular field, you'll get more of those kind of problems. So that should also help. Now, to do this book, after many years of dealing with a lot of friends, I came with this conclusion. You either give it one Saturday or Sunday a week, 8 hours. Sit down, tell the family I'm not available, or go to the library, just 8-hour study. And there's a reason that I'm saying it this way. If the family obligations, work, or discipline, personal discipline, does not allow you to do this, then you have to take a class. And the classes, it's about 1,000, more or less. Some classes, fewer sessions, some goes up to 10 sessions for EIT, for the FE. What do they do in the class? They ask you to come one Saturday, 8 hours, sit down, and if you can do it, because you paid, you will go there. So I suggest give it a shot. If you can do it yourself, great, save $1,000. If not, take the class. There are quite a few books on the subject. I made a recommendation for Michael Lindbergh. He's good for FE, civil, mechanical. He's made a big business out of writing books. exam samples, practice problems. It's a nice size business nowadays that this guy, he devoted his life to developing material for this. For electrical, do we have any electrical engineers here? I got quite a few, yeah. It's the book, I looked at the book. I'm not an electrical engineer, but the book didn't look user-friendly at the time. I'm sure there are good classes, but I know of one that is offered by ETAB every now and then. I put the number, and I think Sharzad would at the end give you some more information. Dr. Farooq Shuku teaches that class, and he's very good in what he does, and he knows his electrical material, and he's done it many, many times. So to me, that would be a good class to take. I'll leave it for you. Oh yeah, what is this?
It's already plus dates.
Oh, she's got the flyer. She's got the date for the next class. It's August 24th to October 22nd. And if anybody wants the flyer, I'll leave it here. That's for electrical. Now, why should we do all this? First of all, many of us graduated from Iran. If you come here, have an opportunity to get a master's degree, that's nice. Some of us don't have that option. If you can get a PE, then the question of where did you go to school, who you worked for, those questions will go away. Because they know that you went through this testing and experience verification and all that. So they know that you are good, you know your material, and you have proved it. So it is a nice stamp of approval for you personally. Now, another advantage is you can apply for higher level jobs that would require, not all jobs require PE. As you know, many jobs, you don't require a PE. In civil, there is more of them, a good majority of them require PE, SE, because you're talking about buildings, safety, public health, public safety. It's something that's needed. But in some other fields, there may not be anything to stamp. And I was talking to Mr. Hashemi, my boss. He's a chemical engineer, and he said, I'm waiting to stamp something. He's got it for so many years, and he never stamped anything. Not a requirement typically to stamp chemical engineering's drawings and all that. However, when your business card says, Mr. So-and-so, a chemical engineer or whatever, PE, that is a title that it gives whoever is thinking of hiring you, dealing with you, with your company, gives you more credibility. And that is, I think, very priceless to a large extent. I have a friend, we were classmates, and he just came here day one, started working, all sorts of things. And once he got his PE, he never really got his master's degree. But doesn't matter. Now he's in charge of engineering department and all that. Nobody questions him. He's got that credibility. I don't know if he signed any drawings or anything, but the credibility matters. That's important. Honestly, we are Persian, most of us here. With our names, as much as we modify it, they know we're foreigner. We were not born here, so we need credibility, wherever we can get it. And this is a good place to get it. Another thing is, now for any of us that became a PE, it's a monthly thing, I don't know. No, annual fee, $40, $50, something like that. Keep that registration valid. Pay it, and they are not like companies that will go after you, send you a second bill, a third bill. No, They'll send you one bill, and you better be waiting for that bill. If you move, you better let them know. It's your obligation to let them know. So not receiving the bill, not an excuse. I lost it in my files, not an excuse. The problem is that if time passes, renewing that thing after 4 or 5 years, whatever, is as hard as going through the process again. So for those of you who get it, make sure you keep it. If you don't want to keep it, just say, let it expire or retire. Say that you want to be a retired engineer. That's fine. You won't be signing anything, but you're still a retired PE. That's another lesson I learned. That is my presentation in a nutshell. Do we have any questions here? Yes, sir.
I just want to make a comment. When Majid told me what you guys are doing, it's fantastic because the elevating the engineering body to another level is a plus. That's number one. Number two is that the number of people who are actually going to engineering has diminished to, I don't want to say nothing, to a point that an entire university has only 13 graduates. And on the other side is that the number of universities that the programs, for example, chemical engineering technically has evaporated because of all the companies who have left the country. But on the other hand, the need for the PEs, at least on the construction industry side, has increased to a point that there is a current law that says every plan checker must be a PE. Because if the individual is not a PE, how can he be qualified to check a PE? So they're actually going towards this factor that everyone must be PE in the plan check level. That, just imagine the number of jurisdictions that we have across California times 1 or 2 or 3, whatever that number is. That would be a magnificent increase. The other issue is between different departments, between, like, for example, electrical, mechanical, and civil, the number of PEs that actually are actually getting out of with the staff in California has diminished further. The need has gone up, and to a point that if you invest in that time, I will guarantee you that 10 years from now, because the numbers are diminishing, you will count your own fees. And again, I'm involved in 3 separate universities. It is sad. And the other issue that we have found out that in the computer industry, they are bringing people from India by factors of hundreds, especially on the insurance companies, because we are not producing engineering in this country. So whatever Majid goes, God bless you all, thank you for doing this, because we need it. And then I'm very heavy in the plumbing industry. I can tell you, we are in such a dire need of plumbing engineers, it is unbelievable. And then plumbing on its own, you may not see it as an engineering field, but all I can tell you is a very good proportion cost on a building, just on the engineering, on the plumbing side. Now, if you take an office, that may not be a case. You take a lab, it is 1/3 of the cost of all the engineering on the plumbing. So anyway, God bless Nippon for doing this, but all you have to do, get that PE, get that FPE before you have 5 children. Okay? When I was taking my electrical, the guy was next to me. He said, I saw his plumbing, his electrical PE book was from 1972. I said, you're in 1997. He says, yeah, that's when I started. So anyway, do it before you have too much gray hair and before you have 5 kids. Because at some point, the 4th kid will not allow you to take the test. Sorry.
Let me just add to confirm what you said. The government jobs, most of them, if not all, they prefer minimum of a FE level. And there is a reason for that. because they want, if they're hiring a junior engineer right off the college or 1 or 2 year experience, they want them to be a PE so they can supervise the jobs, as he explained very nicely. And the major thing is if they have passed the FE or not. Here, put yourself in the shoes of the government agency's HR. You have 5 applicants, and let's say 2 applicants. One, they both look the same, graduate degree, they have degrees and all that. One has a FE, one doesn't. If they hire the one without the FE, they're taking a chance. Because if he was a 2.2 GPA student, he may not pass the FE. And it's a risk. And the guy, he will never get promoted to the positions that they want him to do in 5 years, in 10 years. So even if they don't require for an entry level a PE, they will definitely prefer to have the FE done once you want to enter the government workforce. Big preference there. And naturally, once you get there, you better pass the PE to get to the next level. Otherwise, they probably won't give you the job that you're looking for. Any other questions and comments? Yes, sir.
Lower level question about the exam itself. So if we take the exam, let's say, for example, I'm not good at chemistry and I don't remember from the school time. If I take the exam and I'm not good at chemistry, I don't do very well, but at other parts I do well, is it okay? Or
yeah, you have to meet
a certain...
Yes, 70%, whatever it is. You have to meet that, or 56, 60%. The cutoff line is not that high. How much is it?
For FE is actually 75%.
75%.
The issue is you have to have a strategy because there's a lot of electrical in this, even UCI, none of the electrical guys actually will ever take thermodynamics. And so the same problem. And also thermodynamics, fluids, those are fundamentals for the FE. And most of them don't know. But there are strategies that if you follow, all you need a very small amount for you to go through the pass point. But 75 is the minimum for your for the FE.
And is it the same for PE? And is it the same for PE as well?
PE is different. PE, they have their curvatures. It just depends. The state go because in different states they have different programs. But generally, the passing rate, it depends on the number of people. It literally varies. But passing rate for civil is around 44%. The passing rate for the mechanical is the same. For electrical is only 28 to 30%. And the cutoff point is somewhere. It continuously varies. But generally, if you're like 55%, you've done the test with you're in the passing rate. The only problem is the test is now multiple choice, so you better be very, very ready. It's not like the old times.
Yes, we've taken concours, so.
It's just as difficult.
Yes, sir.
You may want to elaborate and mention about the personal liability that comes with professional.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It's a reminder for you.
I don't want to.
You better be very, very ready. It's not like the old times.
Yes, we've taken concours, so.
It's just as difficult.
Yes, sir.
You may want to elaborate and mention about the personal liability that comes with professional.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It's a reminder for you.
I don't want to give backyard an excuse for not taking it next time.
Perfect. You study, pass the exam, you're a professional engineer. Now what
Mr. Hashimi, I think you would be the best to elaborate on that. You have more experience on the legal issues.
It is really, there is a little bit of an ambiguity in it, but when you have professional engineering, when you stamp a document, you are actually taking some personal liability and taking some of the liability away from the company that you are working for. So it becomes a shared responsibility. So it is good to have some kind of a professional liability insurance if you are a practicing professional engineer.
Absolutely.
A quick question there. It is only for signing, when you sign off something, right?
When you stamp or sign,
Stamp or sign off something.
Yes, sir.
Especially that's true in civil and structural,
Yes.
in rating of the equipments in mechanical, in plan checks for the electrical. So you taking some personal liability.
Thank you.
Sir, back there.
If you sign it under the insurance of the company,
You do not. You don't waive your personal liability.
so it should be a
Close
combination of
and carry. Because typically a professional engineer is compensated higher, and you have taken the oath. It goes at almost with an oath of the office that you are taking. That you do the best exercise in judgmental exercise. That what you are signing is correct and meets all the standards, professional standards.
Sir.
Yeah, my question is, say I'm fortunate that I have a PE who had his PE before 1983, so he has a survey license that comes with it. Supposingly I want to do an LS also, or if I want to do, and I don't have an LS around, how can I go about it? And similarly, if I want to do in another case, somebody does not work under an PE in electrical, because most people I know do not have a boss who has a PE electrical. How would somebody like that go about it?
Well, all you have to do is find somebody, a PE, that would acknowledge that they know of your work. They prefer that you have your supervisor to do that, but it doesn't have to be a supervisor. Out of the 4, maybe 2 or 3 can be somebody who was a co-worker at one time, who was familiar with your work. And that brings us, if you have some typical example that you worked on a project overseas, and then the guy comes here, maybe one of his co-worker or supervisors become a PE here, or maybe he was a PE at the time that he was working there. He can also sign off the experience part. So the key is to find people who are familiar with your work and they feel comfortable. And they go by months. It's very specific. You have to show so many months, minimum 12 months of experience. Sir, again.
There's 2 parts. One, I don't agree with you. If an individual works for a company, the insurance of the company comes in. The only time that the individual will be shared is if he does something with malice. The key word in the court is malice, that he intentionally did not size the building correctly or the beam correctly. He does some, but as a PE, you can have, if you have child support, if you have a criminal offense, etc., your PE is wiped out. But I don't agree that the insurance company will actually, of the building, the only issue is the personal, and the word is malice. And then the word error and omission is you can have an error, not a problem. You can have an omission, not a problem. The problem is, were you drunk when you were doing it? The other one is that the court really looks at is this. Right now, because of the sunset rule, all architects in the state of California can sign for everyone. I don't know if anybody knew. If you're a licensed architect, you can sign for everything. The question that becomes is the building falls. The building becomes, collapses and or floods. When you take him, the first question that they say, what was your license? Did you get a degree? And then the question becomes is, when you stamp the plumbing drawings, how much expertise did you have when you stamped it? That's where the professionalism, et cetera, comes out. The only other item that you mentioned, in nuclear fire protection controls, it is so hard to find a supervisor. It's very, very difficult. But I don't agree with yours that because they will go back if you're mechanical, electrical, they will scrutinize you to death that you were under supervision, but you could collect 2 months from this guy, that one, etc. So, but with regard to the references, I can interview you for 3 hours and say, based on the interview, I agree. But with regard to supervisor, there are, the board is very, very difficult. Sorry.
But it really depends a lot, on some of the employment agreement. I have had PEs that they actually insisted on having some kind of a indemnity clause, within the employment agreement to free them from the liability of the professional engineering. Without having an indemnity clause in your employment agreement, I have checked with our legal department, and definitely we have a personal.
Yeah, well, everyone that I know, we do the same. We always take the indemnity clause.
Okay.
Maybe the question is that with all these hassles and bustles, why do you need to get your PE?
Well, it is a mandatory for every company to have so many PEs, because if you have to stamp your own plan checks, you have to have on your staff enough PEs to be able to do that. That's required in electrical, mechanical, and civil structures. It's a must. And architectural and also fire protection.
Fire protection, yes. Look at it this way, would you go to a doctor that doesn't have a license? I mean, we engineers are lucky that we have the option to work without registrations. We are very lucky. But, huh?
I enjoy your life. You are not supposed to put the word engineer on your business card.
That is good.
If you are not a registered professional engineer.
As far as the state regulations go, he's absolutely right. You cannot use the word engineer. However, practically, I've worked for many private companies and they use the title. So for manufacturing, others, they don't really go by that. They don't observe that regulation.
Except if you're a project engineer. From anything.
I just want to add something. The regulations are becoming tougher and tougher every year. I have a construction company I built. 10 years ago, you could just build, you didn't need anybody to sign it off. But now, in the past 5-6 years, the structure has to be signed off by a PE, specializing in structure. The site has to be signed off by a professional engineer who does civil work. And now they're talking about even going further with electrical, mechanical, and plumbing. Those engineers need to come and actually sign a certificate that this building has been built up to the current codes and standards. Well, 10 years ago, none of this was necessary. So it's very important to go get your credentials, and you'll be successful. You'll have better credentials. You'll have better jobs. You can have better opportunities to do. So, and I want to thank Dr. Abdul. He's the only one that I know. He is a registered professional engineer in electrical, mechanical, civil, and maybe surveying too. And I also, maybe he has a medical degree too. I don't know. But I think he got his PhD in mechanical when he was like 20 years old. So he's one of the geniuses in our community. And Osman Hashimi also, he has a PhD in chemical. And my good friend Farouk Shakur, he is an electrical engineer, PhD in electrical. And he's the owner of ETAP software. For most of you, I don't know if you know ETAP. So we have a lot of engineers in this crowd, and network, ask your questions. And Bobak, thank you for setting up this. Was a great idea to do this. Incredible, it's educational, it's very good for all these young engineers, and I'm sure they can get a lot of questions answered. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I found the user manuals for which the NCES has offered for the FE. I'm comparing to take FE. Frustrating and time-consuming. Is there any
user manual?
Is there any database for the former, past exams?
Yeah, go to. I gave you the name, Michael. Lindbergh, yeah, he's got you covered over there. You can get the book with a full review and explanation. You can get sample tests. You can get extra problems. Different format. He's got a different format, and he's been doing this, I don't know, at least 30 years. So he's getting better and better and better and kept it up to date. I highly recommend you go to them. And I don't think you need to buy the latest and the greatest, because engineering sciences don't change as much. So Amazon is a good source. Yes. Yes, sir.
You can download. The FE has a supplemental equations. There's about 80 pages or so. My highly recommendation for everyone. The FE has a supplemental equations. There's about 80 pages or so. My highly recommendation for everyone. Download it and make sure you can find the equations really, really fast. The actual, they have a little equation book that they will give you, but you can download the whole thing. What happens is that each question is about 2 minutes and 37 seconds, or something like that. The question is, how fast can you find the equation first? So if you take 3 minutes to find the equation, forget about that problem. So my suggestion is get the book, tab it, and then you identify it, because they will give you a fresh book. My suggestion is make sure that, now if you want, somebody wants to review it, if you can go through the equations and understand the equations, you're done. But that book is fantastic. It's a very good reference to find out what you know and what you don't know. The other strategy that I suggest to the students is, it's called inversely proportional. You study the items that you don't know first. Because all you need is a minuscule element for that, just to make sure, because in every subject, they have easy questions, relative, and then it goes hard. If you can pick up all the easy questions, even on the ones that you don't know, is a blessing. And it could be the dumbest question ever. But the issue is you can pick it up, and those points you can just, it's called the give me questions.
I'm not simply here,
it's in the EdCES, and then you go to the State of California site, and then you can download it. And if you want to take any other test, within the body of the State of California, you can find out what the references are. And they also have sample questions that you can pick up. But Kaplan Publishing has purchased almost everybody else. And in Kaplan Publishing, you can find other than Lindbergh. Lindbergh actually in mechanical is very poor. In electrical is super poor. In electrical, other than Dr. Shukul, there is a book, another Indian guy called Chalapati. He made very good manuscript. Dr. Shukul has a very good set of exam questions. But when you take his class, you better know the subject before you take his class. I took this class. It's a final lecture. Don't go there. Don't go there and assume you're going to learn. First learn it. Once you take it, then you go into the exam if you're electrical. Sorry.
Will C rank going down all the time?
All the time? No. No. I go to, if I do that, I go to casinos in Las Vegas. If I go for a test, I go for the kill. If you want to flirt it, don't take it. You're going to lose $165, $185, and your kids will make fun of you. Do not do that. Do not do that. When you go for something, go for a kill. The other recipe that I said about 8 hours, go to Denny's. Go to Denny's because they're open till morning, and sit on the stools because you cannot go to sleep. If you fall, you will fall in the dark. And they're open till morning, and then just give a good tea. Just give a good tip to the guy. He fills up the coffee. Yeah. Do it many nights, so your kids won't make fun of you.
Any other question?
I'd like to answer something to Dr. Noor. Pleasure seeing you up our day after so many years. I just want to announce that I've been doing power system courses for the preparation. But what we do in our class you become a professional engineer means you master something. And it's not just preparing for the course, for the exam, but you learn the power engineering elements that you need to know to be be able to sign not only the stamp drawings, but you can practice electrical engineering. That's what professional electrical engineering means. And whatever you do, if you want to become a professional engineer, become a master in that particular subject. And the course that we are doing every year, this year, Majid called me. And for anyone who wants to take the course from as a NIPOC member, it's free. There is a donation of $350 if you want to give to NIPOC. That would be fantastic because they need it.
Thank you.
But I really recommend that you become master something, and that is that's when you call yourself a professional engineer.
Any other questions or comments here?
Just one more. Sorry. AIA, I teach an architectural exam for AIA. What AIA has done is a very good. Create a study group buddies. That was the best thing ever.
I agree.
Passing rate increases immensely. Just find some Taco Bell that is open till morning and go there. And then just 4 or 5 of you study it together. I remember when I was taking Dr. Shuku's class, there were 4 or 5 of us. And because they were from LA, we met in Lakewood. And we analyzed and analyzed. If you have a study group, it's far better. And because you will be embarrassed if you don't go, you will go. So it's just
I totally agree. It reinforces your personal commitment, time commitment, and also, of course, during studying, you can help each other. But it definitely helps. Definitely. Yes, sir.
I'm looking forward for that study group. I'm taking the October PE exams.
In what field?
Civil. Civil general.
Civil. PE civil. Okay. We got one here.
When you put the study groups, like extra additional thing to the classes?
What happens is what AIA has done, AIA has 7 tests that they have to do. So they formed one, for example, for PPP, programming flat line, right? So you can actually create, and if you are, for example, a civil / you're going for the structural part, you could create multiple. Because some guys are going to go for transportation, you can just create a little one. Again, a group is more than one person. All you need is one more person.
Yeah.
Don't look for 15. And then once you start it, the beauty of that, it becomes a commitment and you will do it. That's the other beauty.
Well, you may want to also mention that if you get your registration in the state of California, that
yes,
does not apply to the other state, and talk about how to register in other states.
It's the way it works is state of California has agreement with some states that they recognize each other's PE, and it's really easy. If they don't have that agreement, then you have to take whatever extra test, or sometimes they just want an application, sometimes they want more references, whatever requirement that state has, you have to meet it. Typically, you don't have to take the 8-hour exams. The FE and the 8-hour PE exam, you typically don't have to take, but there may be other things. I know that if somebody from, let's say, Arizona wants to come to California, they have to, for the civil, they have to take the seismic for sure. Because most probably they don't have to take it. Or some other states that they don't have earthquake issues, they don't have that seismic test. So it depends the state by state. But the main thing is if they have agreement between the 2 states. Well, I think this should do it. Hopefully you learn something. Hopefully you go after it. And I want to have some time for you guys to interact more and network more, because at NIPOC, that's our main goal, is networking. Educational seminars is good, but the main goal is networking.